Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. Today marks the 75th anniversary of the Japanese defeat on Guadalcanal. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Chief Petty Officer Elizabeth Miller. We warmly welcome the family of Private Thomas Johnson, whose story will be told shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge Mr. John King, President, ACT Returned and Services League of Australia. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and by visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this could be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Thomas Johnson. Thomas Johnson was born on the 14th of November 1881 in Wimmera, New South Wales, to William and Jane Johnson. The family moved to Port Melbourne soon after Thomas was born. When Thomas was 8, his father died. Little is known of Johnson's life in the ensuing years, but by the time the First World War began, he was married and had 4 children. The family lived in North Melbourne, where Johnson worked as a labourer. Johnson enlisted in Melbourne on the 3rd of April 1915, joining the newly raised 22nd Battalion. On the arrival at the battalion's training camp at Broadmeadows, he was allotted to C Company. After his initial training on the 10th of May, Johnson embarked from Melbourne on the transport ship Ulysses for service abroad. After a period of training in Egypt, the 22nd Battalion embarked for Gallipoli at the end of August, arriving at Anzac Cove early September. During his time on Gallipoli, he was befriended by a war artist, Frank Crozier, who painted a portrait of Johnson on the lid of a cigar box. The 22nd Battalion served on Gallipoli until the evacuation in December, after which it returned to Egypt. In March 1916, the battalion sailed for France, and by the first week of April had entered the front line near Philibay. The battalion moved south in July to take part of the Battle of the Pozières. The 2nd Division, to which the 22nd Battalion belonged, took part in a costly attack on the 29th of July, which ended in failure. Johnson was promoted to Lance Corporal the same day and to Temporary Corporal the following day. The 22nd Battalion took part in the next advance on the 2nd of August, capturing German positions beyond the remains of Pozières village. For the next 3 days, the battalion was subject to severe German artillery bombardments, which caused heavy casualties. One of them was Thomas Johnson, who was killed on the 5th of August. The manner of his death was not recorded, and his body was not identified following the fighting. He was 34 years old. Johnson has no grave today, and his name is commemorated on the Australian National War Memorial at Villers Brentioch. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving the First World War. A painted portrait of him is displayed by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Thomas Tom Johnson, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.